My 3 children thought I was dying. They gathered around my hospital bed like vultures at a feast, and I let them believe it. The doctor had given me 6 months, maybe less. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. But what they didn't know was that I'd been recording every conversation, every whispered plan, every calculated move they made. And what I discovered changed everything. I'm Tomas Calvel, 72 years old. Built Caldwell Manufacturing from nothing. A small machine shop in 1978 to a company worth $43 million today. 3 kids, Michael, 38. Jennifer, 35. David, 32. I thought I'd raised them right. Turns out I raised them rich, and there's a difference. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday. Dr. Morrison didn't sugarcoat it. 6 to 8 months, aggressive treatment might buy you a year. I sat in that sterile office, fluorescent lights humming, and felt nothing. Not fear, not anger, just a strange clarity. I had time to settle things, to make sure my life's work went to the right hands. I called the kids that evening. Each conversation identical. Clinical updates, prognosis, treatment options. Michael arrived from Boston within 4 hours. Jennifer canceled her Napa Valley trip. David left his law firm early. All 3 standing in my living room by 8 that night, faces arranged in appropriate concern. But I saw something else beneath the worry. A calculation, an assessment. They were already dividing the estate in their minds. I decided to test them. The hospital admission was real enough. Stage 4 cancer doesn't lie. But I had my attorney, Richard Chun, install something special in my private room. Voice-activated recording system, completely legal in Illinois with single-party consent. That party being me. The cameras were hidden in the medical equipment, the smoke detector, even the flower arrangement Jennifer brought. Day 3 in the hospital, I pretended to sleep. Morphine drip made it believable. My breathing shallow, machines beeping steadily. The kids thought they were alone. Michael spoke first. His voice carried that MBA confidence he'd learned at Wharton. We need to talk about the business. Dad's not going to make it to Christmas. The company needs leadership transition now, not after he's gone. Jennifer shifted in her chair. I could hear the leather creak. I'm more concerned about the properties. The lake house, the downtown building, the portfolio. Someone needs to manage those assets. David, always the lawyer, always careful. We should wait until Dad's actually gone before we start dividing things up. This feels premature. Michael laughed. Cold sound. Always the idealist, David. Dad's unconscious. He can't hear us. We need to be practical. I kept my breathing steady. Eyes closed. Let them talk. The conversation lasted 47 minutes. I know because I watched the recording 3 times later. They discussed my assets like I was already dead. Michael wanted the business. Jennifer wanted the real estate. David suggested they hire an independent firm to value everything, split fairly. Fair. That word stuck with me. What's fair when you built everything from scratch and your children are discussing how to carve it up while you're still breathing? The next visitor was worse. Caroline Mitchell arrived on day 5. My sister, 68 years old. We hadn't spoken in 6 years, not since I refused to loan her husband money for his failing restaurant. She came into my room smelling of expensive perfume and cheap motives. Tommy, her voice dripped with false warmth. I heard about your diagnosis. I'm so sorry. I kept my eyes closed. Let her think the morphine had me under. She moved closer. I could hear her heels on the linoleum. You know, I've been thinking about Mom and Dad's old property in Wisconsin. The one you bought from this state. Technically, I should have had rights to that. If something happens to you, I think it's only fair that it comes back to me. Fair. That word again. She stayed for 12 minutes. Touched my hand once. Said she loved me twice. Left without ever asking how I felt or if I needed anything. The recording caught her stopping in the hallway, making a phone call. Her voice carried. He's out of it. Won't last long. Start looking into property records for the Wisconsin land. I opened my eyes after she left. Stared at the ceiling. Counted the tiles. 48. Same number as the years I'd spent building something I thought mattered. Richard Chun visited that evening. Brought his laptop and a bottle of single malt I wasn't supposed to drink. We watched the recordings together. Tom, this is rough. Richard's been my attorney for 20 years. He doesn't mince words. But you need to decide what you want to do with this information. I want to know who actually cares about me versus who cares about my money. You might not like the answer. I already don't like it. Let's find out how bad it gets. We set up the second test. Richard drafted a new will. Completely legitimate, notarized, legal in every way. It split my estate into 4 parts. 25% to each child, but with conditions. Michael had to work at Caldwell Manufacturing for 5 years before receiving his share. Jennifer had to donate half her inheritance to charity. David had to give up his law practice and manage the family foundation full-time. The conditions were deliberately difficult, designed to test commitment versus greed. Then Richard let it slip. Not obviously, just a casual mention to Michael during a hospital visit. Your father's been updating his will. There are some new conditions attached to the inheritance. Michael's face remained neutral, but I saw his jaw tighten. What kind of conditions? Richard shrugged. Can't discuss specifics. Attorney-client privilege. But they're substantial. After Richard left, Michael immediately called Jennifer. I was pretending to sleep again, phone on speaker across the room. They thought I couldn't hear. Dad's changing the will, putting conditions on our inheritance. What kind of conditions? Rich won't say, but sound complicated. We need to contest it. Contest it? Dad's still alive. Barely. And if he's not thinking clearly because of the medication, we have grounds to challenge any changes he makes now. I kept my breathing steady. Listen to my eldest son plot against me. Jennifer arrived within the hour. David came 20 minutes later. They gathered in my room, speaking in hushed voices near the window. The recording equipment caught everything. We need to act fast. Michael's voice. If Dad changes the will now, under medication and stress, we can argue diminished capacity. That's a legal stretch. David sounded uncomfortable. Courts don't like children challenging their parents' wishes. Courts like logic and evidence. If we can show he wasn't thinking clearly, he's thinking clearly enough. Jennifer cut in. I talked to Dr. Morrison. Dad's mentally sound. The cancer hasn't affected his cognition. Then we need a different approach. Michael paused. What if we convince him the conditions aren't necessary? Show him we're committed to his legacy? You mean manipulate him? David's voice went flat. I mean show him what he wants to see. Michael again. Dad built this company from nothing. He values hard work and dedication. We show him that. All of us. Together. They plan it out. 3 weeks of devoted children. Michael would visit every day, discuss business strategy, show interest in company operations. Jennifer would handle property management, prove her competence. David would research family foundations, demonstrate commitment to philanthropy. A performance, carefully choreographed, designed to manipulate a dying man. I opened my eyes. All 3 of them froze. How long have you been awake? Jennifer's voice cracked. Long enough. I reached for the bed control, raised myself to sitting. Long enough to hear everything. Michael recovered first. Dad, we were just discussing how to manipulate me into keeping your inheritance simple. I looked at each of them, at my children, at strangers wearing familiar faces. I heard you, Michael. Every word. The room went silent. David stepped forward. Dad, it's not what it sounds like. It's exactly what it sounds like. I pulled out my phone, the one they thought I was too sick to use. Opened a recording app. Played back their conversation. Crystal clear audio. Their own voices condemning them. Jennifer started crying. Those calculated tears I'd seen her use since high school. Daddy, please. We're just scared. We don't want to lose you. You already lost me. I stopped the recording. You lost me the moment you started planning my funeral while I was still breathing. Michael's face hardened. So what now? You disinherit us? Teach us a lesson? Now I give you a choice. I met his eyes. Each of you. A real choice, not the performance you were planning. I explained the new terms. Simple, brutal, honest. Each child would receive $1 from my estate. Everything else, the business, the properties, the investments, would go to charity. Unless they could prove, over the next 3 months, that they cared about me as a person rather than as a bank account. How are we supposed to prove that? Jennifer's tears had dried. Voice sharp now. What's the test? That's the point. I laid back against the pillows, suddenly exhausted. There is no test, no checklist, no performance metrics. Either you care or you don't. Either you visit because you want to see your father, or you don't visit at all. Your choice. This is insane. Michael's hands clenched. You can't just. I can do whatever I want. It's my money, my life, my decision. They left together. Didn't say goodbye. I watched them through the window, standing in the parking lot, arguing. Michael's arms waving. Jennifer on her phone. David standing apart, hands in his pockets, looking back at the hospital. Richard came by an hour later. That went well. About as expected. I closed my eyes. Now we wait. The first week, nobody came. I discharged myself from the hospital on day 8. Went home, hired a private nurse, Maria, who treated me like a person instead of a paycheck. She made coffee the way I liked it, argued with me about politics, told me when I was being stubborn. On day 9, David showed up. He didn't call first. Just appear at my door at 7 in the morning. Looked like he hadn't slept. Can we talk? I let him in. Made coffee. We sat at my kitchen table, the one I bought 40 years ago, worn wood and mismatched chairs. I've been thinking about what you said. David wrapped his hands around his mug. About caring versus performing. And I realized I don't know you. Not really. I know you built a successful business. I know you have opinions about politics and baseball, but I don't know what you wanted to be when you were my age. What you're afraid of. What you regret. What do you want to know? Everything. He looked up. I want to know my father before I lose him. We talked for 3 hours. I told him about the machine shop, how I started with one lathe and a dream, about meeting his mother at a union meeting, how she challenged everything I thought I knew, about the miscarriage before Michael, the grief we never discussed, about building the business not because I love money, but because I loved making things that worked. David listened, really listened, asked questions, took notes on his phone, not for legal reasons, but because he wanted to remember. He came back the next day, and the next, brought lunch, told me about his work, his failed engagement, his fear that he'd chosen law because it was safe rather than because it mattered. On day 14, Jennifer called, asked if she could visit. I said yes. She arrived with groceries, organic vegetables, expensive cheese, the kind of food she thought sick people should eat. We made dinner together, her following my mother's old recipe for stuffed cabbage. She burned the rice. We laughed about it. I told her about her grandmother, the woman she'd been named after. How Jennifer Sr. had escaped Poland in 1939, arrived in America with nothing, built a life through pure determination. How she taught me that money was just a tool, not a goal. Jennifer cried. Real tears this time. I never knew that. You never told us these stories. You never asked. I handed her a tissue. You were always too busy becoming successful to wonder where success came from. She came back twice that week. Brought photo albums. We went through them together, and I told her the stories behind the pictures. My father's machine shop. My mother's garden. The early days of Caldwell Manufacturing when we could barely make payroll. Michael didn't come. Week 3, I called him. Got voicemail. Left a message. No response. Week 4, he texted. Busy with work. We'll visit soon. Week 5, nothing. David and Jennifer kept coming. Not every day. Not on a schedule. Just when they wanted to. David brought his girlfriend, Sarah, who I'd never met. Jennifer brought her kids, my grandchildren, who I barely knew. We played cards. Watched baseball. Argued about politics. I told them about the cancer, about the treatment options I declined, about choosing quality of life over quantity. On day 37, Michael showed up. Suit and tie. Briefcase. Walked into my living room like he was attending a business meeting. Dad, we need to talk about the company. I looked up from my book. Hello, Michael. Nice to see you too. He had the grace to look embarrassed. Sorry. Hello. How are you feeling? Like I have stage 4 cancer. How are you? He sat down. Briefcase on his lap like armor. I've been thinking about your ultimatum. It wasn't an ultimatum. It was a choice. Feels like an ultimatum. He opened the briefcase, pulled out papers. I prepared a business transition plan. Full analysis of company operations, succession strategy, financial projections for the next 5 years. Michael, this shows how committed I am. How seriously I take the family legacy. Michael, I set down my book. Stop. He stopped. Hands still on the papers. Frozen. I don't want a business plan. I want my son. The man, not the MBA. I'm showing you. You're showing me that you think this is still a test. That you can study for it and pass it. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? His voice rose. You want me to pretend I don't care about the business? The thing you spent your entire life building? I want you to care about me, as much as you care about what I built. He sat back, papers crumpling in his hands. I don't know how to do that. The honesty shocked both of us. Michael's face went pale. He hadn't meant to say it out loud. I know. I kept my voice gentle. I taught you to value achievement, performance, results. That's on me. We sat in silence. The grandfather clock in the hall ticked steadily. 72 seconds passed. I counted. When I was 8, Michael said quietly, you taught me how to use a lathe. In the old shop. Remember? I remember. You let me make something. A small metal box. It was terrible. Completely uneven. But you put it on your desk anyway. I still have it. In my office. Bottom drawer. His eyes widened. Really? Really? I leaned forward. Michael, I'm proud of your success. The business degree, the consulting work, all of it. But I'm proudest of the 8-year-old who made a crooked metal box and was so excited he couldn't stop talking about it. That kid grew up. He shouldn't have disappeared completely. I held his gaze. I don't need you to run my company, Michael. I need you to be my son. He set the briefcase down. Paper still crumpled. Well, if I don't know how anymore, then we figure it out. Together. However much time I have left. Michael came back 3 days later. No briefcase. We went to the old machine shop, the original location I'd kept for sentimental reasons. Showed him the lathe where he'd made that box. We talked about his life, his divorce 2 years ago that I'd barely acknowledged, his loneliness, his fear of failure. We talked like humans instead of like businessman and heir. Week 8, Richard called. The 3-month deadline is coming up. Have you decided what you're doing with the estate? I think so. I watched David and Jennifer in my backyard, teaching my grandchildren how to use the old tire swing. Michael was there too, pushing the youngest one, laughing when she squealed. They all came around? 2 of them did. One took longer. But yes. So you're reversing the change? Back to equal distribution? I'm changing it again. Something different. Richard sighed. Tom, my job is hard enough without you constantly revising. Your job is to do what I ask. This is what I'm asking. The new was simple. Caldwell Manufacturing would go to David, who'd quit his law practice to run it. The real estate portfolio to Jennifer, who'd discovered she had a talent for property management. The investment accounts split between all 3 children equally. But there were conditions. Not punitive ones. Supportive ones. Michael would receive funding to start his own consulting firm, focused on helping small manufacturers. Jennifer would get the lake house, with the requirement that it stay in the family, available to all of us. David would have complete control of the business, but with a board including both siblings. And my personal savings, the money I'd kept separate from everything else, would fund a foundation, run by all 3 kids together, focused on helping people start businesses the way I had. Richard read it over. This is good, Tom. Really good. It's what should have been from the start. I signed the papers. Before I got sick. Before I found out who my kids really were. Before you tested them. Before I tested them. Before they tested themselves. The formal reading happened in Richard's office. 3 months and 2 days after my hospital recording. I was there, thinner but alive. Treatment buying me time I decided to use wisely. Michael, Jennifer, and David sat across from Richard's desk. I sat in the corner, watching. Richard read through the terms. Michael's consulting firm funding. Jennifer's real estate portfolio. David's business control. The family foundation. Equal treatment but personalized. Acknowledging who they actually were instead of who I'd wanted them to be. When Richard finished, nobody spoke for a long moment. Dad. Jennifer's voice was quiet. This is too much. It's exactly enough. I stood up. Joints aching but spirit steady. You 3 spent 3 months proving you could care about someone besides yourselves. This is what you earned. We failed the first test. Michael said. The recording in the hospital. We failed completely. You did. I nodded. And then you chose to do better. That's the actual test. Not whether you're perfect, whether you can change. David wiped his eyes. Not crying, just overwhelmed. What if we hadn't? What if we'd stayed focused on the money? Then you'd each be getting $1 and a lesson in humility. But you didn't. You chose family. That deserves recognition. We left Richard's office together. For people who'd almost lost each other, who'd found something more important than money or business or inheritance. That evening, we gathered at my house. All three kids, their families, Sarah, who David married 3 months later, Jennifer's children, who I actually knew now, Michael's new girlfriend who loved his passion for helping small businesses. We made dinner together, burned the garlic bread, laughed about it. Michael pulled me aside while we were doing dishes. That metal box I made when I was 8. Can I have it back? I dried my hands. You want the crooked box? I want to remember who I was before I forgot what mattered. I got it from my office. Handed it to him. Small, uneven, precious. He turned it over in his hands. Thank you, Dad, for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on yourself. 6 months later, I'm still here. The cancer's progressing, but slowly. Treatment buying me time. Good time with people I love. Caldwell Manufacturing is thriving under David's leadership. He brought fresh perspective, modernized operations, increased profits by 18%. More importantly, he made it a place where people want to work. Jennifer's managing the real estate portfolio with surprising skill. She discovered she's good at seeing potential where others see problems. Like father, like daughter, she says. Michael's consulting firm launched last month. Small manufacturers who can't afford big firms. He's doing what I did 50 years ago, helping people build something from nothing. The Family Foundation funded its first 3 businesses last week. A bakery, a machine shop, a textile operation. All owned by people who just needed a chance. And me? I spent my time with my family, teaching my grandchildren how to use a lathe, telling them stories about their great-grandmother who escaped Poland, watching baseball with David, helping Jennifer evaluate properties, advising Michael les clients, living instead of just existing. The hospital recordings are deleted. Richard destroyed them at my request. No need to preserve that evidence. My children prove themselves in ways that matter more than recorded conversations. Caroline, my sister, called last month, asked about the Wisconsin property. I told her it's going to the foundation after I'm gone. She hung up. Haven't heard from her since. Some relationships aren't worth maintaining. This morning, all 3 kids came over. No special reason. Just wanted to spend time together. We sat on the back porch, drinking coffee, watching the sunrise. Michael asked about the early days of the business. Jennifer wanted to know more about her grandmother. David asked what I'd do differently if I could start over. I told him the truth. I'd spend more time with the people I love. Less time building an empire. More time being present. But you built something amazing. Jennifer said, the business, the properties, all of it. I built a fortune. I raised my hands. The amazing part is sitting here with you. That took longer to build. Almost too long. We sat in comfortable silence. The kind that only comes when people know each other beyond surface level. When they've chosen to be together instead of being obligated. My phone buzzed. Dr. Morrison's office. Appointment reminder. Treatment discussion. We're running out of options, but not out of time. Not yet. I have to go soon. Medical appointment. We'll drive you. David stood. All of us. You don't have to. We want to. Michael already had his keys out. That's the difference now. We want to. Not obligated. Not performing. Not manipulating. Choosing. We drove to the hospital together. Same building where I'd recorded those conversations 3 months ago. Where I'd tested my children and found them wanting. Where everything changed. In the elevator, Jennifer took my hand. I love you, Dad. I love you too. And I meant it. Not the automatic response. The real thing. The cancer's going to win eventually. Dr. Morrison is honest about that. 6 months has become 9 months has become a year, maybe more. But it will win. The difference is, I'll lose to cancer surrounded by people who love me, not by people calculating my net worth. My children will inherit money, but they already inherited something more valuable. The knowledge that people matter more than possessions. That relationships require effort. That change is possible if you choose it. That's the real inheritance. Not the business or the properties or the bank accounts. The understanding that success isn't measured in dollars, but in moments like this morning. Coffee on the porch. Sunrise. Family. I am Tomas Calvel, 72 years old. Built a company worth $43 million. Raised 3 children who almost lost themselves to greed. Dying of cancer. and happier than I've been in 20 years. Because I learned something in that hospital room, listening to my children plot their inheritance. Sometimes the worst thing that can happen forces you to see what matters most. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what's actually worth keeping. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the people you love choose to meet you halfway. To do better. To be better. That's not revenge. That's not justice. That's just grace. And grace, I've learned, is worth more than all the money I ever made.